බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීග්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්. බිස්කට් වේදිකාවට දැන් පැමිණි සීග්‍රගාමී රසේ මංචි පොටේටෝ ක්‍රැකර්.
On satellite, on Freeview, on cable, on radio, on mobile, on the web and around the world. This is Other Derana 24/7.
First at 9, former finance minister grilled. Over 8,000 pages of data extracted from Aloysius's phone. Texts referred to RK and PM. Minister says he knew nothing. Also making headlines tonight, divesting non-strategic assets. Government begins process of bringing in private investments to Grand Hyatt project and Hilton Colombo. Never-ending saga, antisytem protests worked off island-wide. In sports, record breaker Nima set to smash transfer record in €222 million move to PSG. Going soft, US says it is not seeking a regime change in Pyongyang. Good evening. After much controversy and media scrutiny, with the mentioning of Minister Ravi Karunanayke's name at the Commission of Inquiry probing the controversial bond issuance, the former finance minister, who is the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, finally appeared before the Commission today. First at 9, we begin tonight's broadcast with that news. I'm Indivari Amwatha. The Attorney General's Department revealed today that 8,600 pages of data was extracted from the mobile phone of former Director of Perpetual Treasuries, Arjun Aloysius. Attorneys representing the department disclosed the facts before the Commission of Inquiry probing the central bank bond issuance today, adding that there are several text messages referred to as RK and PM. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ravi Karunanayke appeared before the Commission today after failing to appear at the Commission on the 26th and 25th of July, citing work commitments. Appearing before the Commission of Inquiry, former Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayke, who currently holds the portfolio of Foreign Affairs, admitted that he and former Director of Perpetual Treasuries Arjun Aloysius have been family friends for at least 10 to 12 years. He, however, noted that they had not shared any relationship in business or official matters. The minister was questioned by Additional Solicitor General Dappula de Oliveira, referring to a part of the 8,600 pages of information extracted from the phone of Aloysius. The Additional Solicitor General highlighted that in a few incoming and outgoing text messages by several individuals to Aloysius, names such as RK, Honorable Ravi and PM were mentioned. When questioned if RK and Honorable Ravi were referred to himself, Minister Karunanayke dismissed, saying it could be anybody, adding that he had never received such text messages personally. Meanwhile, the AG's department had obtained travel itineraries of both Minister Karunanayke and Arjun Aloysius during the period from June 2015 to April 2017. Additional Solicitor General Dappula de Oliveira revealed that their travels to Singapore had coincided 13 times and had even travelled in the same flight together once. When asked whether they had met in Singapore, the minister admitted they did so at 2 or 3 occasions, but the meetings were never of official nature. The Commission's attention was then brought on to the controversial luxury apartment Minister Karunanayake and his family currently live in. Responding to a rather strict line of cross-examination by the Additional Solicitor General, the minister said that he did not deal with the previous owner of the apartment, Anika Vijaysurya, when it came to making rental payments or purchasing the apartment. He also said that his wife, Mela Karunanayake, never mentioned visiting the apartment with Arjun Aloysius prior to renting the property. Minister Karunanayake added he was completely unaware of the rental payments made by the former director of Perpetual Treasuries, Arjun Aloysius, for the apartment his family occupied. Minister Karunanayake went on to say that all negotiations regarding the rental of the apartment was conducted by his wife and 3 daughters. Responding to further questioning by Commission members, Minister Ravi Karunanayake said he had no knowledge that his company, Global Transportation Logistics Private Limited, had been repaying a loan of 165 million rupees obtained for the apartment. Commission member Justice Prasanna Jayawardena then revealed that the Commission had already looked into rental payments by Perpetual Capital Holdings to Walter and Roll, which bears ownership of the luxury apartment building. Justice Jayawardena said they had obtained checks from banks written by Perpetual Capital Holdings. After a testimony of 5.5 hours, Minister Ravi Karunanayake addressed the media outside the Commission premises.
Officials from the AG's department are trying to climb up their career ladder by tarnishing our characters. Why are they talking about these relationships? They are attempting to level allegations by combining my own work and my family's dealings with their companies.
මම වෙනම කරනවා මේ දෙක ඒකාබද්ධ කිරීම තමයි මේකෙන් කරන්න හදලා තියෙන්නේ. ඔව් මෙතන conflict of interest කියලා. මොන conflict of interest තියෙන්නේ? මම ගත්තේ. මෙන්න ඔබතුමාගේ පවුල කියන්නේ ඔබතුමා නෙවෙයිද? ඒක හරිම දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. ඒ කියන්නේ එතන ඒගොල්ලෝ කරලා ඒකට කිසිම ගෙවීමක් කරේ නැහැ. ඒ ගෙවීමට නැවත ඒවර reimburse කරලා තියෙනවා.
Also in our top stories tonight, the government says that they will begin the process to divest its stake in Grand Hyatt project under construction and the Hilton Hotel in Colombo. The cabinet approval was granted to proposals in this regard with a view to restructure selected non-strategic assets of the government.
Submitting a cabinet paper, Minister of Public Enterprise Development Kabir Hashim has proposed that Grand Hyatt Colombo project, owned by state-owned enterprises, Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, Litrogas and Employees Provident Fund, will require a large investment in order to improve and develop its resources. Accordingly, the cabinet approval was granted to seek and select suitable private investors. Thereby, a tender committee and a technical evaluation committee will be appointed in order to divest the government's stake in Canwell Holdings, which is the Grand Hyatt project undertaking company. Meanwhile, under the restructure of the Hilton Hotel in Colombo, the government has decided to hand over 51% of shares in Hotel Developers Private Limited, a government entity which controls Hilton, to a private investor. In addition, 4% of its shares will be allocated for its employees, while the rest of the 45% will be listed on the Colombo Stock Exchange. Meanwhile, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Rajitha Senaratne expressed his views, responding to a question on the government offering its assets to private investors. People will protest just like this when we attempt to do it. The government does not have money, and when it attempts to do a transaction, everything is scrutinized. Foreign investors invest money according to the economic state and the stability of the country. They too will be scared by this country.
Meanwhile, Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Rajitha Senaratne said that the government will negotiate with China if there are amendments to be made to the agreement between Sri Lanka Ports Authority and China Merchant Port Holdings on the Hambantota Port investment.
On the Hambantota, because there are media reports today suggesting that the cabinet has given 2 more weeks for ministers to study the agreement.
No, 1 more week.
Okay.
Only yesterday only the agreement was presented to the cabinet.
That is a signed agreement?
Signed agreement.
Yes. Does it mean that you are going for some kind of renegotiating of the deal or
No.
the deal?
We want actually observations of the ministers. That is because this is a cabinet, as a cabinet note it came, not that it's a cabinet paper. Just to inform the cabinet about agreement. The cabinet cabinet decided to give 1 more week. There are valuable fresh amendments only that we can negotiate. No,
and there was
so
some.
We will wait for 1 week.
Yeah, there were some clarifications from the media also. They said that the signed agreement and the approved agreement is not. There are some problems with that. So that is why actually it came to the cabinet, and again after the signing of the agreement, we have to go through it and see what we have agreed. If agreed approved, we have to have some observations on that.
If there were any changes or amendments to the framework agreement, are you going to sign it?
If there is any suggestion from the ministers, we can discuss with them and do the needful there, because there is a provision in that to discuss with the other party and change this. This is not a signing of another agreement.
And the Chinese will agree.
We have to discuss with them. You can change this with the consent of the other party.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the contribution of the youth will play an integral role in the government's efforts to curtail national debt. He made the statement at an event organised by the National Youth Services Council at Temple Trees today.
The first flag of the Youth Development Flags movement, organised by the National Youth Services Council, was presented to Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees this morning.
රුපියල් මිලියන 100ක් වෙන් කරන විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ විවිධ කෘති වලට
We have allocated a sum of 100 million rupees for the development of various programs in state universities. Funds will also be given to further develop the Gamatakotiak youth program. These initiatives are carried out so that our youth will be able to take responsibility for the future. One of the biggest challenges our country is faced with is national debt, and the debt might be passed on to our youth. It is our belief that by 2020 we will be able to control the debt, and by 2025 we will be able to resolve this issue. We have no wish to become a debt-ridden nation who begs for financial assistance.
Well, a number of protests organised by Antisytem Public Campaign and National Trade Union Centre in line with the self-declared protest day against Sytem were launched around the country today. The main event of a series of protests was worked off adjacent the Petta railway station.
The protest organised by the Government Medical Officers Association, National Trade Union Centre, Inter-University Students Federation and Medical Faculty Student Activist Committee was held near the National Hospital today.
Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne attempts to depict this as something done by a small group of people. Therefore, the President disregards this issue. We're in the process of conveying the message that the general public is against Sytem and selling medical education.
They later arrived at the Ministry of Health and staged a protest. In line with the Anti-Sytem Day, All Ceylon General Ports Employees Union also launched a protest in front of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. Another anti-Sytem protest was organised in front of Sri Lanka Inland Revenue Department. Anti-Sytem Electricity Board Trade Union Collective was held in front of the Ceylon Electricity Board. Lanka Postal Services Union also launched a program to collect signatures for an anti-Sytem petition adjacent to the Central Postal Exchange in Colombo. A similar petition was launched near State Engineering Corporation by State Engineering Corporation Employees Union. Meanwhile, the main protest organised against Sytem was held adjacent to the Petta railway station this afternoon. Parallel to the Anti-Sytem Day, a number of protests and demonstrations were organised across the country. Meanwhile, doctors in some hospitals reported to work wearing black armbands. Today marks the third day of the protest march organised by the Inter-University Students Action Committee to force the government to abolish Sytem. They reached Nitambur today and the march is scheduled to reach Colombo this Friday.
Meanwhile, the issue of private medical colleges was brought up at several media briefings by politicians and trade union members today.
The leaders of this government should decide whether they are going to give a humane response or we will shorten the tenure of this government. We responsibly say that the agreement signed by the Minister of Health and Dr. Neville Fernando in front of the President is a complete lie. That agreement regarding the hospital was not signed that day.
We are going to get larger batches, large numbers. So when the numbers are increased, then we need the government support and the government hospitals. Because we didn't get these government hospitals, we had to sort of concentrate ourselves to the NFTH. To make a medical student, you don't need SLMC approval. But once you have given the degree, for that medical student to become a doctor, you have to do another period of training as a student. That is called internship. And that is what the SLMC, that's where the SLMC get involved.
Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaravira emphasises that the media is responsible for revealing the wrongdoing and shortcomings of the government. The minister was speaking at an event held in Colombo today.
The awarding of certificates to the 5th batch of the diploma course on media studies and journalism conducted by the Sri Lanka Press Council was held under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena at the BMICH. Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaravira spoke on the roles and responsibility of the media at the event.
The media has a responsibility to reveal if a government engages in fraud and corruption. However, we also need to remember that we have to safeguard certain factors in order to protect our future. You should not be duped by the media charade put on by old political ghosts who intend to create bloodbaths in the country. I wish all of you to actively contribute in creating a new media culture which is beneficial for the country.
The Sri Lankan Navy's first advanced offshore patrol vessel was commissioned in a ceremony by President Maithripala Sirisena at the Eastern Container Terminal of the Port of Colombo this evening. SLNS Sairala is the first ever brand new platform purchased from a foreign shipbuilder tailored for the specific requirements of the Sri Lankan Navy. Further, it holds the record for the largest vessel built by an Indian shipbuilder for a foreign navy to date. The state-of-the-art vessel arrived at the Port of Colombo on the 28th of last month. The vessel is expected to conduct patrols, surveillance, search and rescue, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief and pollution control missions in Sri Lanka's maritime zones. Here's a look at other local stories making news from across Sri Lanka.
The Colombo Fort Magistrates Court further remanded former Navy spokesperson Commodore DKP Dasanayake until the 10th of August. The former Navy spokesperson was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department on the 12th of July in connection with the case involving the abduction and enforced disappearance of 11 Tamil youths in 2008. Over 2,700 people were arrested in a special police operation launched island-wide from midnight last night to this morning. 17 suspects relating to various crimes and 359 people for the possession of narcotics, including heroin, were arrested during the operation. Nearly 14,000 police officers, including SSPs, were deployed in the operation, and the police said similar operations will be conducted in the coming days. The drought prevailing in the Vanya district is affecting people in 102 Grama Niladhari administrative divisions. Disaster Management Centre of Vanya states that nearly 86,000 people, belonging to over 24,500 families, are suffering from the prevailing drought. Minister of Power and Renewable Energy Ranjit Simbalapitiya assures that there won't be any interruptions to the electricity supply or an increase in the tariffs in the near future.
We have estimated that more than 52 billion rupees will have to be spent to continue the power supply in case the drought prevails. We were able to reduce the extra expenditure to 38 billion rupees, but I would like to certify that we will not have power cuts or increase electricity tariffs.
Former Commissioner General of the Department of Inland Revenue, RPL Wickremesinghe, says that tax concession component of the Inland Revenue draft bill has been omitted and needs to be replaced by a different form of tax concession. He revealed this at an event organized by the National Trade Union Federation on the effects of the new Act of the Workforce.
If you ask my personal opinion, you cannot have a draft bill that is not complex in nature. The reason being, the government will have to find various avenues to obtain an income. For instance, even if you watch a movie, you will have to pay tax. We cannot just introduce two types of taxes, as it's not so simple. What is significant about this draft bill is that tax concessions have been removed. Some of these concessions are given to bring in investment. According to the old bill, subsection 7 to 14, which listed tax concessions, have been taken out. They have now replaced this with accelerated depreciation or lump sum depreciation, which is a different form of tax concession.
In international business news, India cut interest rates to the lowest since 2010 to boost an economy struggling to recover from Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cash clampdown. The Reserve Bank of India said in a statement today that the benchmark repurchase rate was lowered from 6.25% to 6%. India's Monetary Policy Committee called on the government to speed up projects, citing an urgent need to boost private investment. The reduction is seen as the RBI governor's last chance to spur growth before the US Federal Reserve begins reducing its balance sheet, adding pressure on emerging markets to tighten. And the Colombo equities extended losses for a fifth straight day today. The all-share price index closed down 19 points at 6,585. We now have the daily market update with Imeshu Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange.
Top 5 gainers of the day were PC Pharma, Century Investments and Finance, Royal Palms, Bearville Resorts and Malayan Phipps, while the top 5 losers were Adam Capital, Ceylon Beverage, Deep Products, Merchant Bank of Sri Lanka and Colombo City Holdings.
In sports, the second test between Sri Lanka and visitors India will begin tomorrow at the SSC grounds in Colombo. Dinesh Chandimal, who will captain the Sri Lankan side after missing the first test due to pneumonia, addressed media today.
We all know at the moment India is a #1 team. They played some really good cricket last 2-3 years, so credit goes to them. But as a team, that's a really good challenge for us. My boys, they all in a good position. They will do their best in this game, and it might be a turning around for the winning way.
And in volleyball, Sri Lanka lost to Iraq at the 19th Asian Senior Men's Volleyball Championship in Indonesia to finish the tournament in 14th place. After beating Hong Kong in straight sets and making it into 13th place playoff, Sri Lanka went down to Iraq with a score of 1-3.
Sri Lanka started the 13th place playoff match against Iraq brightly, winning the first set 25 points to 16. Iraq came back strongly in the second, winning it to 11 points, then pipped the Lankans in tight third and fourth sets 25 to 22 and 25 to 21 respectively. The eventual winners were Japan, who beat Kazakhstan in the final.
In football, Barcelona forward Neymar was given permission by his club to discuss a world record €222 million transfer to Paris Saint-Germain today. The forward reportedly told his teammates at the training this morning that he wanted to leave the club and was then given permission by Barcelona manager to skip training and sort out his future.
Neymar's contract with Spanish giants Barcelona has a minimum fee release clause of €222 million, which, if met, guarantees that a bid has to be accepted and the player may begin contract talks with the buying club. The player's agent, Wagner Ribeiro, tweeted that he was in Paris today and said that last year his client was offered a salary of €40 million after tax. If the move goes through, it would more than double the previous world record transfer sum of €105 million, paid by Manchester United to Juventus for Paul Pogba.
News about North Korea. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says that the United States is not seeking a regime change in North Korea amid tensions over Pyongyang's weapons program. Following tests that suggested North Korea has expanded its missile range as far as the U.S. mainland, Tillerson stressed that the U.S. wants dialogue with the secluded nation.
The second North Korean test of an intercontinental ballistic missile was conducted on Friday. And while one Republican senator claimed that there could be war, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson appeared to want to diffuse tensions.
We do not seek a regime change. We do not seek the collapse of the regime. We do not seek an accelerated reunification of the peninsula. And we're trying to convey to the North Koreans, we are not your enemy. We're not your threat. We would like to sit and have a dialogue with them about the future that will give them the security they seek.
And 96-year-old Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh and consort of the British Queen Elizabeth II, officially retired today. Having announced his retirement earlier this year, Prince Philip attended his final public engagement, a parade of Royal Marines, today at the Buckingham Palace.
The retirement of Prince Philip brings to an end over 22,000 solo public engagements, over 600 solo overseas visits and 5,500 speeches. Prince Philip is the longest-serving consort to a monarch in British history, having been by Queen Elizabeth II's side since their wedding in 1947. Born into Greek and Danish royal families, the prince has served as a patron or member of 780 charities.
For the latest in the weather, let's cross over to Katharina Chang at the Weather Centre.
A very good evening and welcome to the Weather Centre. Now, over the next 24 hours, we can expect temperatures to vary between 21 and 36 degrees Celsius, with the low pressure zone in the western province to prevail over the course of the day, particularly Ratnapura district. Now, intermittent showers can be expected over Vaunia, Trincomalee and Putlam, while fairly heavy rainfalls of about 50 millimeters can be expected at some places in the Ratnapura, Kegol, Kandy, Gol, Matra and Kalutara districts. Now, take a quick look at the city-by-city forecast.
That's all from the News Centre for tonight. We'll return first at 9 tomorrow. But before we go, we'd like to leave you with visuals from the National Museum today, where President Maithripala Sirisena donated a royal sword or kastane, which he received from Russian President Vladimir Putin. Once belonged to a Kandyan Nilame, the kastane was auctioned at the Sotheby's auction house in year 2006 and was bought by a Russian artifact collector. Have a pleasant evening. Stay safe. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana, 24/7.